I come back to the fact that I was ill-equipped. I was ill-equipped from an early age to make good life choices. Yeah. And the ex-husband was definitely not one of those good choices.
Of course, yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay, so how did you guys meet?
I had met him when I was 15. We dated for 3 weeks. Right. He was 7 years older than me. And I met him at church.
Okay.
And I met him then again at church when I was 18. So he would have been, what is that, 25, 26. Yeah. And we dated, and I was in the country. And there was sort of a protocol of how these things worked. So you would date for 2 years, get engaged, then you'd be engaged for a year, then you'd get married, and then you go through that whole process. And we're talking about the 90s.
Right.
So all of that was what was forecast ahead of me, with obviously studying and work involved in that as well. So
right. And so you meet this guy in church.
Yeah.
You fall in love. Were you in love?
Fell in love and dated and got engaged 2 years later, exactly 2 years later.
Okay.
And then 6 months after, 6 months or 7 months, I found out that he had obsessive compulsive disorder with prostitutes and phone sex and so on and so forth.
Right.
So at which point I went off to Australia.
Was he still engaged in that while he was in the relationship with you?
It started when we got engaged.
And prior to that?
Prior to that, I don't know. I really don't know.
Okay.
And I feel quite free to talk about him because he's in a different country and it's very unlikely.
This is the internet, Trudy Kerr.
That's true.
You are also, you know exactly how this works. It's just a link. Yeah, here's just having a chat about it.
Yeah, no, that's, yeah.
Yeah. So the guy starts having like this compulsive disorder.
Yeah.
Did you know he had an obsessive compulsive disorder?
Not at all.
Not at all. You couldn't tell? Nothing about his personality?
No. Look, in fairness, he was still living at home at 26. Now, that might not sound like a big deal here in Malta, but in the UK, that is quite a big deal.
Nuts, yeah.
And he would come home. He was working in London. Right. And where we were in the country was about 2 hours drive away. So he was driving up and down every day, and he'd come home, and his mum would have his dinner ready for him and all sorts of things. And it was just kind of a little bit strange. But again, I have to say, it was the 90s.
Right.
So these were different times.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, I remember very clearly thinking to myself, is this the path that's going to be laid out for me? Is this what I'm expected to do? I'm studying graphic design. I'm doing a graphic design degree, having a really good time. That's a whole different story. Damon Albarn from the Blur, his father was my tutor. You know, we used to go around his house for parties and Blur would play. And we were having a great, great time. But I was also studying from home. So everything that I had been facing was still around me. I was still just dealing with it in a different way. And along comes this guy, and we fall in love, or I thought we fell in love, and everything looked really rosy and lovely and wonderful. We get engaged, and then I'm going out to Australia for the summer. My best friend is out in Australia. I have a semester break. I decide I'm going to go to Australia to see her, and I'm around my ex-husband had bought an apartment by this point, and it was being done up, and I went round and I found the phone bill, and I'd been calling my friend in Australia a lot, and I said, okay, look, I'm gonna see the phone bill, I'm gonna surprise him, I'm gonna pay it. And I opened it up, and it was £700 for 3 months, and that was, you know, I was, okay. and I won't go into all of the kind of, because we could be here forever, the unraveling of what happened, but basically everybody kind of went, no, you're on your own with this one, Trudy. And there
why were you bad?
Because there could be a lot of reasons why I'm going to say this, because it was easy to blame me, because it was easy to blame me. He was from a really good churchy family. Nobody wanted to face this. No one wanted to deal with this. I remember when I found out, and that it wasn't just phone sex, it was hookers and all sorts of things. And it's just not, it sounds like I'm making a big deal of something that today may be more acceptable. But when you're 18 years old, and again, by now 21 years old, and I'm just going to point out again, this was the 90s.
Yeah.
It was something I hadn't faced before. It was something
Right.
I wasn't familiar with.
Yeah.
It was an obsessive compulsive disorder that he had.
Right.
And eventually he got diagnosed with this, but
Right.
that's many years to come.
Later. Okay.
And
in the meantime, because you're obviously pretty new to relationships.
Yeah.
Were you wondering, like, maybe I should accept this?
Well, ultimately what I did was I took all of that weight on me. There was a bit more self-harm. There was a bit more.
So you stayed on in the relationship,
Yeah.
thinking that we're going to work through this.
The advice that I was getting at the time was, look, all men go through this. All of them, the men, this is a man thing.
Mm.
You know, he's sorry. He's going to get over it. And you shouldn't let it affect your relationship. Now, unfortunately, that's a narrative that a lot of women and men, but women are told and they accept.
Yeah,
and the problem is you accept that.
Who the
What
fuck
else do you
was telling you that, though?
His parents, his family, friends, you know,
So
the very
it was,
few.
so they knew about it.
They knew about
Okay,
it.
alright.
I was not allowed to tell my parents about it. I was told not to because it's something that should be kept within the family. They obviously knew something was wrong.
Right.
But hey, listen, if we tell her not to tell anyone, to keep it to herself, and we'll just tell her that, you know, this is what guys do. He's made a mistake. And I'm thinking to myself, this was going on for 9 months. This is not a one-off mistake.
Right.
And also, just to put that in context, there are quite a lot of parallels between when I came to Malta. I could understand the sort of church community because it's not far from where I grew up, in a very, very, very strict Protestant family background, and so I could understand that when I came to Malta, a lot of it made sense. And there was just let's not talk about it. Let's just brush it under the carpet. Let's push it away, and everything will be fine. So,
did you have a good relationship with his family?
No.
No, at no point.
Look, if you behave the way people want you to behave,
so you're putting on a show for them.
absolutely, definitely.
So like just this dimension you wanted to show them was having a good relationship with them, but you not really.
To put that in context, John, I'm still going through a whole bunch of trauma by myself. There's still a lot going on in my own life.
Like a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot.
It really sounds like
there was a lot.
Right, it sounds like a lot. Okay, so you decided you're going to stay on in the relationship.
Yeah.
You're getting pressure from the parents saying, "Hey, listen, this shit happens. You know, he's a man. He'll see his way through this. If you support him, like, were they expecting your support?
Yeah.
They're expecting your support
Yeah.
in the form of just hanging around.
Staying, not talking about it, not putting any pressure on him to deal with it. You know, he'll deal with it in his own way. And it was all about him dealing with it, not me dealing with it. I just had to, you know, move on and accept everything. Right. Which was fine, except that it then reared its ugly head again later on.
Right.
So then we went on. I graduated. From university, I went to London. I applied for a fantastic job in London. I moved to London, and then he came. And then the year after, we got married, and then he moved to London as well. So we went ahead with everything. We went ahead because that's how it was.
Were you terrified as you're going along and saying all of these yeses? Okay, I'm gonna get married. Okay, we're gonna move in together.
I knew walking down the aisle.
Fuck. Yeah, that's scary.
That if this was going to work,
scary.
It was all down to me. I knew that it was the wrong decision. And my gut was screaming. I remember going to the phone box that morning that we were going to get married, and I remember calling him. And here's the interesting thing. You know, it wasn't just an emotional or mental manifestation. I also had really long hair. And 6 weeks before we got married, I cut it all off. I was screaming, I know this is the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And if one person, I say to this day, if one person had said to me, hey, Trudy, do you really think you should be doing this? I think this is a bad decision. That would have given me the out to say, okay, Mary says it's a bad decision. Maybe I should be thinking about that. But nobody did, because it was what was accepted. It was what was expected. And it was the storyline that was so apparent in that culture. And so we went along with it, And I just today, actually, somebody said to me, if I think somebody's in a bad relationship, should I tell them? Hell yes, you should. Absolutely, you should. You might lose their friendship.
Yeah.
But if you don't, you will feel like I felt when everybody said, oh, we didn't think it was going to work, when eventually we broke up after some very painful experiences. And I said, no, you don't have the right. You do not have the right to tell me you didn't think it was going to work if you didn't have the balls to tell me that I shouldn't be doing it. Yeah. Because I was just a really messed up 24-year-old then, who wholeheartedly wanted this to work. I really wanted this to work. I really wanted everything I had invested in to come to fruition, to be the relationship that I deeply, deeply longed for. But I didn't, obviously, wanting it and having it is not the same thing.
Mela, tlaqna?